The participants, over 800 area classrooms. The materials include classroom activities and even a computer program, and at no cost to the schools. Channel 5 is committed to encouraging science education. That's why Weather School is a daily feature on the Channel 5 News 5 o'clock report. Join us each day at 5 for Channel 5's Weather School, in session only on Channel 5's 5 o'clock report.
You're watching Channel 5.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. It was a very interesting election day. And while they say that all politics are local, the results of local and state elections across America yesterday enable us all to pick up some powerful vibrations about the national mood. President Bush and the Republican leadership cannot have missed the fact that Democrats have finally discovered an issue they can exploit successfully, the economy. It was the issue in the Pennsylvania Senate race. Harris Wofford, a college president who had never held elective office, defeated Richard Thornburg, who left Mr. Bush's cabinet to run for what he thought was a sure thing. Here's ABC's Jim Wooten.
Off to Europe this morning, the president had a few words about yesterday's voting. Pennsylvania, bad, he said. But all in all,
we're very pleased. There was a lot of good news for the Republicans.
As head man of the Republican tribe, this is his job, to accentuate the positive. And that's what he did.
Because our man in Mississippi won big, New Jersey won tremendous, blew him away in Virginia. And so please just don't look at part of the glass, the part that is only less than half full.
He did not say half full, he said less than half full. In other words, Dick Thornburg's stunning defeat in Pennsylvania has scared the dickens out of the White House, not only because the president actively campaigned for Thornburg, but also because Thornburg made the president a centerpiece of his campaign and lost badly to a Democratic underdog who blamed the president for Pennsylvania's economic distress and exploited national health care as a symbol of presidential disinterest.
It is sending a message, a very strong one. We built a bonfire here in Pennsylvania. We set up a fire that I think is going to be noticed.
Even some Republican voters in Pennsylvania agreed and defected.
I switched, first time in my life, to a Democrat because I really don't like the way things have been run recently in Washington.
And Pennsylvania's Republican hierarchy, meeting glumly today, more or less concurred with the voters' take on Thornburg.
Because we all thought he was going to sweep through.
Well, I think Wofford was able to label him as a Washingtonian incumbent, and it was able to stick.
But the president was pleased with a Republican victory in Mississippi. Businessman Kirk Fordyce beat Democratic Governor Ray Mabus with an anti-welfare campaign he said was not racial. And he was pleased with Republicans in New Jersey who swept the state legislature by campaigning against Democratic taxes. They can now do just about whatever they choose there. It's hard to get a handle on yesterday's message or messages, really. Both Democrats and Republicans were upset winners and underdog losers, and the only constant theme seems to have been an underlying hostility toward taxes and incumbents. And then, of course, there was that resounding shot across the president's bow in Pennsylvania. Jim Wooten, ABC News, Washington.
Well, everywhere that politicians and their handlers gather today, the conversation goes pretty much the same way. Did the campaign commercials make a difference? What about the men and women who ran the campaign? Was there a key slogan that worked? What about this dissatisfaction with incumbents? As ABC's Cokie Roberts reports from Washington tonight, at both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, the results have been taken as a wake-up call.
While Democrats and Republicans stress different messages from yesterday's election, all of them agree the voters shouted one warning louder than any other. It's time for Washington to act on issues that voters care about.
They're tired of Congress blaming the White House, of the White House blaming Congress.
That frustration already seems to be spurring legislative action. Middle-income tax relief, which looked dead for this year, came back to life today.
I'd be delighted to be able to get the bill out this year if we could. I think that there's a very strong feeling that we have to accelerate the consideration of this.
Even House Ways and Means Chairman Dan Rostenkowski, who's resisted a tax bill, now says he'll put a plan on the table tomorrow. Leaders promise unemployment insurance this year and a health care package next year. But those pledges will be hard to keep. For one thing, neither party has a plan. For another, even though voters called for action yesterday, they also made it clear they're not ready to pay for new programs.
Speaker, the message yesterday from my voters and across this country wasn't anti-Republican nor anti-Democratic. The message was anti-incumbent, anti-tax, and anti-big government.
Until yesterday, those mixed messages from the electorate have meant paralysis. Now it's clear that inaction is politically unacceptable. So the politicians in Washington have to figure out how to do what the voters want without raising taxes or adding to the deficit. So far, neither the president nor the Congress has a clue how to do that. Cokie Roberts, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
There are some other messages in yesterday's election. We'll have those stories in just a moment. Also on the broadcast tonight, the government calls for food labels that really tell you what's inside. And on the American agenda tonight, whether the burden of pollution is falling most heavily on minorities.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by DuPont.
Recently, DuPont announced that its energy unit Conoco would pioneer the use of new double-hulled oil tankers in order to safeguard the environment. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. DuPont, better things for better living.
Oh, no.
When it's cold and rough outside.
Fetch, Mommy.
Try something warm and creamy inside. New Honey Nut Instant or Original Cream of Wheat. 2 warm ways to come in from the cold.
Campbell's heard your healthy requests.
Low cholesterol.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
Some more on the election. There was a lot of speculation that voters might express their anger at politicians in general by limiting the time they could stay in office where they had a chance. But in the state where this was most hotly debated, voters in Washington state, who turned out in large numbers, voted against term limitations. Washington voters also rejected a death with dignity proposition which would have legalized euthanasia. In San Francisco, voters have ordered the city to spend a certain amount of the city's budget only on programs for children. And in 2 states, victims' rights were on the ballot. In New Jersey, victims of crime or their next of kin will now have the right to be present at all court proceedings. In the past, lawyers could argue that a victim's presence was harmful to a defendant. And in Washington, D.C., voters overwhelmingly passed a law they hope will stop the killing. Here's ABC's Kathleen Delasky.
It was an act of desperation, an attempt to make someone besides victimized families feel the pain of the city's violence.
Those persons who are manufacturing these weapons will see beyond the symbolism to the reality of their own economic loss.
Under the law, gun dealers and manufacturers all over the country are liable for crimes committed in Washington, involving 14 types of semi-automatic pistols and rifles. It means that if someone buys this Colt rifle in this store and later uses the gun to hurt someone, then shop owner Rob Raudebush could be sued for damages.
I do think it's ludicrous that somebody would try to hold me responsible for somebody who's committing a crime that I have no control over. I have no way to stop them.
But the ministers who led the campaign say they have found no other way to stop the killing. They prayed last night for the law's success. Now the ministers pray the law will hold up in court. The National Rifle Association plans to challenge it as unconstitutional. Lawyers are split on that question. The answer becomes even more important because 4 states are considering similar laws. Kathleen Delasky, ABC News, Washington.
The next big election is for governor of Louisiana next week. President Bush is clearly concerned about how well the Republican candidate, the former Ku Klux Klansman David Duke, seems to be doing. The polls show Mr. Duke running about even with the Democrat, Edwin Edwards. Today, President Bush called Duke a charlatan and said if he lived in Louisiana, he would end up voting for Edwards. Well, in Louisiana itself, it's not only Mr. Duke's past that his opponents have been focusing on, it's what some of his critics say may happen to the state's economy in the future if he's elected. ABC's Mike Von Fremd is in New Orleans.
According to one of the most influential business leaders here, if David Duke wins, you can kiss the economy of New Orleans goodbye.
Some people say that David Duke will hurt the convention industry, and that's just pure nonsense. He won't hurt the convention industry. He will eliminate it.
David Dixon is credited with bringing the Superdome and the Saints to New Orleans. He and other business leaders are now saturating the airwaves with this plea to elect Duke's opponent.
Tourism is our #1 industry. We can elect a governor who's already brought us 4 Super Bowls and hundreds of conventions, or risk putting out the lights of New Orleans forever.
Many conventioneers here today say if Duke wins, they won't be back.
I absolutely, with good conscience, could not come to New Orleans ever again until he was out of office.
Northwest Airlines has put its planned maintenance facility in Louisiana on hold until the governor's race is over. The University of New Orleans Economics Department surveyed conventions and businesses which have threatened to leave Louisiana if Duke wins. The school estimates the state would lose $1.8 billion and 45,000 jobs. But Duke says his victory would be a boost for the economy.
I will work to bring that business here. And I tell you, the conventions that cancel, there'll be a lot more conventions that will be replaced.
But that is not the sentiment on the streets.
Oh, my God, if David Duke wins, it would mean Louisiana, L-O-S-C-I-N-A.
The business community wants to make sure that this election, which has featured mostly racial issues, will in the final days focus on pocketbook issues, so this city can continue to let the good times roll. Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, New Orleans.
Just one other note about politics and abortion. In this case, the House have voted today to allow federally funded abortion clinics to provide abortion counseling. President Bush has said that he will veto the measure. We'll be back in just a moment.
Because sometimes the day ends and the pain doesn't, we're introducing new Tylenol PM. It's more than relief. It's relief for those times when you can't sleep. Tylenol PM has extra-strength Tylenol pain reliever to help stop your nighttime aches and pains, plus a gentle ingredient to help you sleep, so you can wake up refreshed in the morning. From the name you trust comes new Tylenol PM, so you can rest easy.
But my cat's healthy. Should I be concerned?
Is a cat's urinary tract health important?
Don't overlook cat's urinary tract health. Introducing new Chow special care brand cat food from Purina, specially formulated to help maintain a cat's urinary tract health.
I love my cat, and I give him the best I can.
New Chow special care for your special cat.
Power. Applied intelligently, its effects are magnificent. Witness the Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, powered by the world's largest 24-valve V6 engine and an electronic transmission. It's a car designed to provide a more intelligent standard of performance, measured not simply in miles per hour, but by a slightly different gauge, miles per gallon. Oldsmobile, the power of intelligent engineering.
In economic news today, another attempt to pump some life into the economy. The Federal Reserve has lowered the interest rate it charges banks by another half point to 4.5%. The last time it was that low, Richard Nixon was president. The textbook says this should stimulate the economy by making it cheaper to borrow money. So far in this recession, the textbook has not been right yet. Here's ABC's Stephen Ogg.
This is the 5th time the Federal Reserve has lowered the discount rate in less than 1 year. Banks were quick to lower their prime lending rate a half point to 7.5%. But despite the ever lower interest rates, the economy seems stuck. Some economists say continuing to lower rates should eventually encourage people to borrow, to buy, and turn the economy around.
It's always worked before, it'll work again. It's just a matter of, is it enough? And I'm arguing for a bit more.
Consumers complain that banks have not lowered credit card interest rates and have become fussier who they lend money to for big purchases like homes and automobiles, all of which keep spending down. What's more, this week's ABC News Money Magazine survey says consumer confidence has fallen to its lowest point in the 6 years the survey's been conducted. So what will it take to rebuild consumer confidence? One answer could be lower interest rates, another lower taxes, or it could be a secure job. But whatever it is, nobody seems to have found the magic formula. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Washington.
The federal government is proposing some new rules to give consumers a fair shot at finding out what really is in the food we all eat. What is low fat, for example? Lower than what? The government says food labels had better make sense. Here's ABC's Bettina Gregory.
The new rules would require labels on all processed foods, including processed meat and poultry. Labels would not be required on fresh meat, poultry, fruits, vegetables, and fish. The rules would set standard serving sizes for all products. For example, a standard serving of salad dressing would equal 2 tablespoons. The rules are designed to stop manufacturers from setting unreal serving sizes to make products appear lower in undesirable ingredients. Only 9 terms will be used to describe the nutritional qualities of food. Some examples. Sodium-free would mean less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. Low calorie would mean less than 40 calories. Reduced calories or fat would mean reduced by 1/3. Light would mean 1/3 fewer calories than the regular product. Health claims would be strictly limited to scientifically proven relationships, such as calcium's ability to reduce osteoporosis and less fat lowering the risk of cancer and heart disease. No health claim will be permitted for the benefits of fiber. The rules are expected to be approved next year and required on all labels printed after November 1992. The government predicts they'll save at least 2,000 lives a year now lost to cancer and heart disease. Bettina Gregory, ABC News, Washington.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials gained about 7 points to close at 30.38, and the trading was moderate. Some news in brief. The publisher Robert Maxwell apparently died of natural causes. The preliminary autopsy shows Mr. Maxwell may have had a heart attack and fallen overboard from his yacht yesterday morning. In Kuwait today, firefighters put out the flames at the last of 732 oil wells set on fire during the Gulf War. In the Philippines, a tropical storm has caused a devastating series of landslides and floods. More than 2,300 people have been killed and 1,500 are missing. And South Africa has accepted an invitation to go to the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona in Spain, South Africa's first Olympics in 32 years. In a moment, the American Agenda.
Well, here it is, gentlemen. Top of the world. Now, I put my camera here. Your vehicle would face out over the cliffs. What do you think? Look, if you plan to claim your vehicle's as good as a Jeep, you really need this shot in your commercial.
How are we going to get our vehicle up here?
Helicopter. We'll lift it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Great. Let's go down and make some calls.
Same thing. Let's go. This is going to be a great commercial.
To survive in today's world, you have to follow certain basics. You have to work, and you have to eat. And both play havoc with your stomach. That's why I take Maalox. Maalox is the strongest antacid there is. It works fast to stop the burning and churning in no time. And who knows more about stomach problems than Maalox? You know, it's a funny thing. I started taking Maalox because the doctor told me it was strongest. I keep on taking it because my stomach tells me it's fast.
I'm finally eating a hero, thanks to Super Poli-Grip with its Ultra Hold formula.
Now holds dentures ultra tight, stronger and longer than ever. Ultra Hold formula, the best grip Poli-Grip has ever made.
Do you have a cold?
Yes, I do have a cold.
Here's 2 cold medicines. This relieves these 3 symptoms, this 9. Choose one.
I would use this one.
Why?
That's my cold. The fever, the headaches, the sinus congestion.
Here's what you chose.
I'm totally amazed.
Would you try Dristan Cold?
Absolutely.
How do you feel?
I feel amazingly good.
Dristan Cold relieves 9 tough cold symptoms. Dristan Cold, part of the Dristan family of products. Dristan, the face of relief today.
On the American Agenda tonight, the color of your skin and the quality of your environment. A recent nationwide survey has found that 3 of every 5 blacks and Hispanics live in areas where there is a toxic waste dump nearby. We've put the subject on the agenda because a lot of black and Latino communities now want to know why these dumps and so many other polluting industries end up in their neighborhood. And how can they keep them out? Our agenda correspondent is Ned Potter.
We had almost an epidemic of cancer in this area here. They call this area
Cancer Alley.
Amos Favorite has lived in Louisiana for 66 years, in the industrial section from New Orleans to Baton Rouge that ranks among the most polluted in America. Favorite says most white Americans cannot imagine what it's like to live here, with homes literally across the street from oil refineries, with kids going to school, and playing a block away from a petrochemical plant.
The closer you get to these plants, the white people cease to exist. They all move out from out here.
Some groups say there are 100 cancer alleys. They say America's minority communities, impoverished and politically powerless, have been used for decades as sites for waste dumps and heavily polluting industry. A civil rights group says it has documented a clear link between race and pollution. Here's their map of Atlanta, showing that predominantly black neighborhoods are where most toxic sites are located. Here's a map of Chicago, with the black or Hispanic sections and the toxic dump sites.
If we look at the pattern by which these companies locate their operations and the practices that they employ when these operations go in, and it's tantamount to environmental racism.
And minority leaders charge that living near pollution translates into illness and death.
These people down here have to put up with all that every day. My secretary, Mary Jackson, that's where she got cancer at, in that house there. She died last year. This brick home here, my aunt's grandson, whole body was riddled with cancer.
Doctors cannot say for sure that pollution caused all the disease here. But then why, people ask, is the cancer rate 18 times the national average in some areas? Amos Favorite says he lost 9 relatives to cancer in 13 years.
This is my grandmother here. See, Emily Favorite. This is her son, this is his wife, and that's this son there. All 3 of them was cancer.
But many people are no longer just taking it. They've organized their own grassroots environmental movement.
Can't take it no more.
Geared to the needs of minorities.
Cancer between Baton Rouge and New Orleans is higher than any place else in the country.
People flock to political rallies.
Come on out! Come on out! Come on out!
They demand meetings with chemical companies. They say environment is a high priority, just like schools and housing.
You know, I would like to have a good water supply in this area.
Well, we're working on that.
Amos Favorite has turned activist himself. He organized a group to control hazardous waste disposal. They blocked an asbestos dump. They got tanker trucks off neighborhood streets. And officials in Louisiana have been forced to respond. State lawmakers, spurred by local activists, passed a law to cut toxic emissions in half by 1997. Meanwhile, the minority movement is spreading nationally. Migrant farm workers are suing to stop an incinerator in California's San Joaquin Valley. Chicago housing project residents forced the state to clean up toxic dump sites. And a company that planned to burn toxic waste in East Los Angeles has run into stiff local opposition.
So they figure we're going to put it there because they never have complained in the past, and not anymore.
Actually, the battle has only begun. Despite the efforts in Louisiana, 500 million tons of toxins will still get into the air there every year. But organizers across the country have served notice that minorities will no longer be passive victims of pollution. Ned Potter, ABC News.
Tonight's American Agenda. Back in just a moment.
Hello, Jill. Oh, how about dinner at our house? What's wrong? Headache. I can imagine. Oh, I've got what you need. Motrin IB. Works great on headaches. My doctor said it's the same medicine as in prescription Motrin, but in non-prescription strength. 1 Motrin IB works as well as 2 regular Tylenol. Here.
Oh, no.
Don't look. Just keep this. Sounds like they'll need it, too.
Motrin IB, recommended by thousands of doctors.
And your neighbor.
The traction control system of the Lexus LS400 helps reduce tire spin across rain, sleet, snow, even
an occasional patch of ice.
Alaska. Cold, clear waters. This is where it begins. Red Lobster now brings you the Alaskan Crab Rush. When snow crab is at its sweetest, juiciest. Right now, enjoy 8 great crab dinners starting at just $8.99. The Alaskan Crab Rush. Before it's over, rush to Red Lobster.
Tonight on Nightline, fed up voters send a message to politicians. Do last night's election results mean trouble ahead for President Bush? The story tonight.
Just before our final report this evening, a word about last night. We were had by the editor of the Forbes business publication FYI. On the strength of Forbes' reputation, we quoted a report from its current issue that says the Soviet Interior Ministry, in part to raise foreign currency, was going to auction off Lenin's body, which still lies in state in Moscow. We said last night it was an extraordinary story. More to the point, it isn't true. Just a little joke by the Forbes editor, Christopher Buckley. Though, given the chaos in the Soviet Union, nothing would surprise us. At any rate, we were gullible, and we assure you that this next report from ABC's Bill Redeker in Japan is legit.
In Japan, you really can't take it with you. Elaborate funeral services, traditionally held at home, cost up to $75,000. Burial plots can cost another $30,000 because there is so little land available. As a result, Japan's $7 billion a year mortuary business has been forced to change. Since most Japanese are cremated, temporary pay lockers can now be rented for cremation urns at mausoleum high-rises. And funeral halls, virtually unknown a few years ago, are growing increasingly popular because they charge 1/10 the going rate for services held at home. But the latest trend in Japanese funerals can be found in this former bowling alley in Osaka. After a Buddhist service and the final chrysanthemums are placed in the coffin, theatrics replace tradition. Another high-tech funeral is underway. On a platform tilting heavenward, the coffin makes its way through a tunnel of light and dry ice smoke. Followed by family members, the laser farewell, as it's called, lasts only 3 minutes before the platform disappears into the clouds and a flash of light.
I was really moved. I felt as if the deceased was really beginning a journey to a far-off land.
I felt we sent the person into a beautiful atmosphere.
6 of these $8,000 services are held every day. Demand is so great, President Shinichi Saito plans to open a chain of the parlors.
Today's generation, who must eventually see their parents off, have been brought up in a high-tech society. That is why this type of service is accepted.
Saito has reason to believe high-tech funerals will flourish. After all, he's had a lot of experience. His laser farewell is modeled after his earlier creation, high-tech laser weddings. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Tokyo.
That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Sent to prison for a murder she didn't commit.
Most of the women in here, thieves, junkies, murderers, they have to live by their rules.
Now she's fighting for her life.
It isn't about justice, it's about winning.
What are you going to do, wait for them to put you in the gas chamber?
Donna Mills and Robert Wagner. The conclusion of false arrest tonight.
Your attention, please. Metro Sales and Service has invited 6 of the biggest brand-name sewing machine manufacturers to bring you Iowa's largest ever sewing machine warehouse sale this weekend at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. See over 600 1991 Singer, Baby Lock, Viking, White, Elna, and new home sewing machines and sergers at factory direct prices with up to 25-year warranties. Example, a Singer heavy-duty zigzag machine is just $128. What a perfect Christmas gift. Iowa's largest ever sewing machine warehouse sale this Thursday through Sunday at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Doors open at 10 a.m. each day.
Tonight, the job wizard gives you a career.
Rock legend. Tree pusher. You got yourself a great job. I'll be proud to have you working by my side.
Dinosaurs.
Ugh, I feel sick.
Then.
This was not the kind of girl that Wayne usually dated. She was funny. She was smart. She used her silverware.